Welcome to A Photographer's Life, the channel that takes you behind the curtain into the world of professional architectural photography. Join us now for an episode with some of America's premier architectural photographers. Today's broadcast comes from a recent Zoom meeting of the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This discussion is led by AIAP Director Alan Blakely. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. Now, on with the show.
So I want to welcome everyone to this meeting. We're going to talk about the mentorship program that everyone has asked about and recommended. And so here we go. And we're going to start from the premise of the fact that we are going to begin a mentorship program with the AIAP, and it's for members of AIAP, those who are interested in mentoring and those who wish to seek mentorship from other members. And so that's kind of the premise of the whole situation. The purpose of the meeting is to kind of work out the nuts and bolts of how we're going to make that happen. And I think there's a great opportunity for those of us that have been in the business for a long time to still learn a lot from those that are fairly new and vice versa. So it would be good to set up a situation where we could have an interchange. And I'm not really sure what that needs to look like. If we need to have, a forum page or a calendar page where we make appointments with one another, or a page on the member portal on Neon where we log in and find people who are willing to mentor or things like that. So let me open it up and just see what your feelings are about how that mentorship program needs to roll out. Yeah, Norman.
I like the idea a lot, Alan, because I know that when years ago I would call photographers, and I had a couple of guys that really helped me out. You were one of them. But I like the idea of helping other people in the business, because it's just a good idea. It may be on the AIAP page. We could have a section of those that are willing to mentor, and another section with those that wants to be mentored. I think, and I like the idea of scheduling. That's a nice way to do it.
Think a forum where you can get in there anytime and connect with people who want to be mentored and people who are willing to be mentors.
One of the, I don't know if any of you are using a calendar app on your websites for people to make appointments with you. One of the things that was recommended to me was one called Calendly, Calendly. It works with Google Calendar, and you can install a widget on or any kind of a link on your website. I use that, and it allows people to, and you can tell it when you want to take appointments and things like that. But that might be something that, if you're interested in mentoring, that you could make that available too. But I'm kind of hesitant to do something that would create a calendar that would be something administered by the AIAP in general. But I do think, Norman, what you said about having maybe something on the, a page of mentors, maybe that would be a good idea. We could certainly list that, and then people could contact from there. And we could certainly list that in the members area, so that would be one of the links when you log into your membership portal, that there will be a link there, and I'll put that there today. AIP mentors, and there will be a list there. And if those who are interested, I'll send out a general email. Those who are interested, I'll just put contact information there that's available for people to contact directly, and then you can do your own, scheduling and calendaring from there. And then as far as the forum, Terry, is that something that the Facebook page could function as, or does it need to be something different, you think?
I think there's three groups of people that we have to distinguish, and that is those that just want to be mentored, those that want to do mentoring, and those that want to do both. I'm one that wants to do both. I think I know enough to mentor someone fairly new, but at the same time, I'm fairly new in some ways, and I would like to be mentored. So I think maybe, everyone who's a member who has any interest in this program needs to designate, or which are you of the three?
I think that's brilliant. And quite honestly, I find that I fall into all three categories. I did an interview with Kyle Wiggy not too long ago that's on the podcast, and Kyle's not been in the business very long, and I learned some really important things from Kyle. He's only been in the business like 10 years, and I learned a lot from Kyle, and so I'm certainly in that category of, still being able to be mentored. So I think that's an important designation. Thanks, Glenn.
And one other thing is that some of us might be best mentoring or want to be mentored in the business side of the whole thing, and some of us might be more interested in the photography side of, how do we improve our actual photography, where somebody might be really excellent with their photography, not too worried about that, but the whole business side need all kinds of mentoring.
Would it be helpful maybe when in those listings that we do on the AIAP portal to maybe list some kind of areas of specialty or mentoring specialty? It seems like that might be useful.
I think also you might have to get into what kind of equipment they're talking about if they're wanting to be mentored on the photography side, because I don't know anything about the Canon cameras because I'm a Nikon guy, and I don't know anything about the Fujis.
Another aspect of the mentoring could be, like a portfolio review. I mean, that's something that I've done a couple of times, and I've got my own opinion of what I think are my best photos and why, but it's always good to have someone whose eyes I trust, looking at it and giving me their feedback. They've seen things that I never noticed. It's like, oh, okay, I don't want that on my portfolio. Or so that could be another aspect of not exactly mentor. Maybe it is mentoring, but anyway, it's a useful service.
One thing I was going to say is back when I was living in London before I moved over here, I used to look after London College of Printing and a couple of other universities as well, and I would make a list of who the mentor is, what they specialize in, so you could have retouching or Photoshop, camera equipment, Capture One, whatever the aspect is, and you would list who the mentors are, how to contact them, and then what they specialize in. And rather than just being like a big general thing, you've got guys that obviously are better at the business side of stuff than they are at the retouching or Capture One, anything like that. So maybe a list of who your mentors, who wants to be a mentor. I don't think you need to list the mentees, just the mentors, and what their specialties are. And then from there, you can just make an appointment, or maybe have it so that whoever the mentor is, if you have 2 or 3 people that are all interested in learning about, I don't know, retouching. I mean, I've been retouching for nearly 20 years now. If they want to know a bit more about retouching, you could set up like this, like a Zoom chat where, you can go through stuff with 2 or 3 people at a time. And then if you want something more individual, you can approach somebody that way as well,
That seems like a lot more economical way to organize things. I appreciate that. As it is right now, I think we would only open it to members of the organizations. And that's another point that I would want to bring up right now, because we've got two related organizations. One is the Real Estate Group, Real Estate Photographers of America, and then the Aerial Drone Photographers is another group. And so those are related groups that would kind of fall under the same umbrella, but I wouldn't necessarily want to open up to the general public. I would want to keep it under that umbrella of the three groups that are kind of related, that we all can move between and be a part of. And let it just, I think that's going to be plenty. And between those three groups, I think that there are plenty of people that are interested in getting some advice, but then there's also a wealth of experience there that we can draw from. But I think if we go beyond that, then we have to look at what do we do to make it worthwhile? Because I don't know if you experience this. Many of you probably do, where you get calls, just random calls from photographers, email or calls wanting advice, and I don't have the time for that. I'd like to be a nice guy and offer advice, but I can't do that. It just wastes my day, and it's not of any benefit to me. So I'd like to be, generous and gracious, but I can't do it. I would say we need to limit this to people that are, within the membership, that would have access through that members only portal. So that would be my suggestion. But this way, I think we have, the resources to have a consistent element of, good information. That there's not going to be people offering information like on YouTube, where it may or may not be anybody that's actually done photography before. So this is going to be an excellent resource. Everyone here has excellent experience and will give good advice, regardless of what the category is.
I get calls a lot from photographers, and it's specifically like, I was on your website, I seen this picture, how did you shoot that? What did you do?
Yeah.
And I don't mind answering calls like that. It's usually from a photographer that's in the same field as me, and he's just trying to, figure out how you did something. So I don't mind answering questions like that at all.
And I've been that photographer as the newcomer in the group. I kind of adopted Norman as my mentor after I discovered the group back in January.
Oh,
Been a great resource. I've been a photographer for a while, but the architectural side has been newer for me, and it's been super helpful to be able to reach out to Norman for help on the photography side and the business side, and just knowing how to have those conversations in the right way with clients and not undercharge and all that. Super valuable.
I would think that the business side of things, as far as mentoring, is going to be as a big part of it as anything. I mean, a lot of the calls that I get are business calls. They're not necessarily, they're photography business, but they're really about business. They're not necessarily about photography. So, and that's huge.
I think through this, rather than create more competition or anything, I think it would help the tide to rise. And I think all of us will be the beneficiaries of that. And one other thing I wanted to mention was that it is important to have a rapport with the person that you're trying to mentor or be mentored by. And I like Jack's idea of reviewing portfolios, because if any one of you review my website and my portfolio, the way you review it will give me a great insight into how we could potentially work together in the way of mentoring either way. And even if somebody is far less experienced than yourself and they review your portfolio, that's a good thing too.
Sure.
It's not just a top down, it's a bottom up review is a good thing, I think.
Having more eyes on and Jack about a portfolio review and things like that, that's hugely important. And even when you're in the business a really long time, because the people that are looking at our stuff and making decisions about it, they're not our age. They're not. They're our grandchildren's age generally. And having some other eyes on your work and see what's important. Not to say that you have to skew things to that aesthetic completely, but it's good to at least maybe see things from that direction. And there's also the opportunity to, I think there's a responsibility to educate to what good work is continually, because otherwise things just continually spiral downward as to what the least expensive work is. But excellent to have some other eyes on things. And even if it's not just your portfolio, maybe it's your marketing materials or your copy that you're using in your advertising and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would actually, as much as I would like to have other professionals like this look at my work, I really wish I could have the marketing people at the architectural firms, the 35-year-old women that are hiring me, give me their feedback, and because it's marketing, so it's what looks good in the eyes of the beholder. To your point, Alan, you need to educate them as to what good is, but nonetheless, you're trying to cause an emotional response. Yes, I like this. I know my architects will like this. You know, those are the people I'd really like. It's a different, I still want, experts to look at it, but they're the buyers. I'd like, it's like market research.
Jack, that's a good point, because I find that most of the market directors, or the people that with magazines or architectural firms, they're not real educated on quality photography. They'll look at an overexposed image and oh, it's so airy, but you can't see any detail in the image, or the colors are blown out, or you can't see the floor. Yeah, you can't see through the window. And I remember talking to a marketing director, and she's showing me a shot that she liked. And I like, when have you ever been in a kitchen and not been able to see out the window? And she looks at me, I said, you can't see anything out the window. She never thought of it. So, I mean, I find that, especially, if you shoot for magazines, or your stuff is in magazines, you look at an architectural digest from 30 years ago, the photography was top drawer. It was beautiful. And you look at it now, and it's like, it's all mediocre. I mean, at best. So it's like the people in charge don't know what good photography is, and that's disturbing. So when a photographer has to ask to educate a market director, back in the old days, all those market directors, they had degrees in photography. They all went through school, Columbia or Brooks or something, but not anymore.
Norman, to that point, next Wednesday, I'm giving a presentation to my biggest client. It's a national client. And my presentation is how to collaborate with your architectural photographer. And they're nationwide, and they might be using some of you guys, I don't know. But I'm supposed to teach them what to look for in an architectural photographer and in the architectural photography that they get. And I'm going to try to make the points that you're talking about.
Along those lines, I don't know how many people in this group are members of SMPS, Sales and Marketing for Professional Services, but that's a very good resource. And not only is it a great opportunity to meet and network with all the marketing people, but occasionally, if you sponsor a meeting or whatever, you can make that presentation of what good architecture is and what they should be looking for.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important groups to be involved with for this industry. That, and maybe becoming an allied member of AIA, but SMPS, definitely that's where all these different marketing directors seem to land. So absolutely. I mean, it seems like we've come together pretty quickly on this whole mentoring issue, and I'll implement these things rather quickly so we can get rolling on this, and then make a general announcement so that we can implement this rather quickly. Is there any other thoughts that anybody has, or any concerns about this?
So I wanted to throw just something out in terms of structure, because I'm doing this right now. I'm a member of NPPA, and I'm on my second mentor with them. And the way they do it is they announce there's a program. They say, here's where to apply. I'm not sure what's on the application side, but then somebody at NPPA puts people together. So the last mentor I had was a student at Northwestern, and really, really good, very hardworking. Clearly, to me, he looked like he was going to go somewhere. He was going to have some kind of career. He was doing everything right. including not sleeping very much, because all he was doing was shooting and editing and being an editor also at school publication. However, he was not interested in being mentored particularly. And so it just drifted away. I think we had 2, maybe 3 meetings at most. I offered him a lot of help, a lot of material, contract templates, all the things I give my students when I teach business practices. So that was a bit disappointing, and I signed up to do it again. And now I've got this young woman in who's working as a professional in Oklahoma, and she is fantastic. She is so enthusiastic. She wants to collaborate on this thing. And what this bit of mentoring is turning into is it's her whole career, right? Her website was a mess, just terrible, but she is a coder and understands basic design, but couldn't apply it to herself, basic good design. So she's very responsive. She does, she wants to do more photojournalism. She also writes. She's doing weddings, a little bit of boudoir stuff. She's doing events. She's doing senior portraits. That's kind of her area. But she's doing everything right, except that her website was shitty, and she doesn't know how to market. So my point in all this is that people come to you with different pain points, and then as a mentor, you can, with any experience, anybody here would be able to do this, would be able to say, well, I'm happy to help you with this, that, and the other that you're looking for help with. However, your website is terrible. And it's not going to help your marketing to not have this. And if you want to do writing, the way you have your writing set up and your journalism, that's not going to help either. And she has been incredible. She gets it. She just gets it. She wants to be helped, as opposed to this guy at Northwestern who didn't want to be helped, but was actually doing pretty well on his own. So he was getting his mentoring from being a student, which is, perfectly a reasonable position to take. But NPPA putting people together was very helpful. I'm not sure that how this would apply to what you're trying to do here, because you kind of vet people to begin with just to be a member. And so by default, they're not in the category of these 2 young people. But as somebody who's done a lot of teaching, and I do informal sort of, I don't know if it's teaching, but advice giving on Facebook, several photography groups, and you just don't know. They think they're starting here, but they're really starting over there somewhere. And the kind of questions they ask, whether it's about business or other things, are so intertwined very often that I find what I do very often is explain in without, it's tricky to teach and be a mentor. You don't want to make people feel stupid. So trying to explain that, yes, a contract is a contract, and you're probably maybe having this person as seems like a contractual problem, but it's really a people skills problem, because that's what so much of this is people skills. And the contract is just a representation of that. And so that is a kind of, that's the most valuable mentoring I ever got, was that sort of thing. So it's what I'm saying is, you don't know what's going to happen when people reach out, however they get in contact with you.
I think one of the biggest advantages for any of us who go to somebody else is that maybe somebody sees a broader picture than we do, and I think that's exactly what you're describing, Barry, is that somebody hopefully sees things in a broader picture than you might, and can help you put the pieces together. And so hopefully that's what that mentoring situation is. And I think there has to be an attitude of graciousness and wanting to be helpful. And
well, you've got that. You've got that in this group, which is why I stick around. I've been in enough crummy groups to, life is short. But it's also on the Facebook page, right? There are some, I'm a member of a couple of drone groups, and the attitude, the bad attitude and language that comes across when somebody asks a simple question or says, well, I made a mistake, and, oh my God, it's horrible. So having a zero, well, I don't get the sense that you need a zero tolerance for bad behavior on the Facebook group. But no, it's really pleasant.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's a level of professionalism that we haven't had to deal with that kind of stuff. So that's been really, really pleasant. Because I've gotten flamed on so many groups from things that I've said, and I thought, yeah.
The thing that came to mind for me was to just sort of be prepared, just to gently put the word out in a few places. Some of the Facebook photography groups, there's one for San Francisco, there's one for LA, I think there's one for New York. This is going to be stepping outside of what you were talking about, trying to keep it an AIAP, but also the trade associations, APA, maybe not NPPA, but certainly ASMP. I have my own problems with ASMP. I don't know how responsive they would be. They've talked about setting up a mentor. What's that? Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was on the board, we talked about setting up a mentorship program, but nobody ever did anything. So sometimes you come with an idea in hand to a board and you say, here we go. I mean, we're ready, but you got to be prepared to both do the project, but also to deal with the craziness of a board.
That was my concern, was that the architectural focus group was too small of a group to be of any consequence to the group in general.
Well, they were the largest group of forum in ASMP by far, and I was a moderator on those forums for 10 years, by far, and they've been trying to bring it back, but there's not much enthusiasm among the staff and board right now. There's been a big push to get it done. So I'm not suggesting that they're open to this.
Your experience with the two students, or the two people that you talked about, it didn't sound very architectural. It sounded more photography related. And what Alan's suggesting, by starting with an architectural target base of mentors and mentees, we're likely to not have people talking about wedding photography or how can you help me with my portraiture work.
I don't want to sound greedy, but I think we have plenty of people in AIAP to figure out how to do this mentoring before we worry the least bit about trying to engage anybody else outside of AIAP. If nothing else, we won't know what we're doing. So we wouldn't impress other people too much until we figure out how it works amongst ourselves.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, we're at about, between the three groups, we're at about 850 members right now. So, I think that, I think there's plenty, and those of us that are willing to offer advice are going to have plenty of opportunity for that. And those that need to seek advice, I think there's some great resources. So, I think it's a good situation. I would not be opposed at some point if we find an avenue for those that are coming into the industry to offer mentorship situations to that. I just don't know what that is. I don't know what programs there are out there that are architecture related with regard to academic programs or things like that. I don't know who's teaching architectural photography, if anybody, or if there are any programs. So I'm really kind of flabbergasted about that whole situation.
I don't get the sense that most art schools are teaching architectural photography. They're focusing on fashion and beauty and documentary work, but there's a lot of architectural photographers, maybe some of you even, who went to architecture school. So that might be a way to reach out to architecture programs if you want to start getting young people who are not yet members or even working professionally. A lot of Benny Chan in LA went to SciArc and realized he didn't want to be an architect. Grant Mudford is not really practicing anymore. He started out as an architecture student. There's a lot of I wish I could think of more, but there are people working now that were training as architects and then became photographers.
Yeah, there's a fairly large contingent of this group of AIAP who started as architects.
So that might be a resource for if you want
Yeah.
to once you want to reach out, if you decide to reach out to outside the organization.
Just among you guys here, can I just ask you something? How many of you, is this your full-time job? That's no, but I'm surprised at how many in the Chicagoland area that are, competitors, that it's a side gig for them. And I find that the people that do it as a side gig, they don't take it as seriously. And you know, it's, and I think that has a lot to do with the lack of quality in the architectural field, because the guys that this is their bread and butter, they work hard and they turn out a good image and they're professional. And that's, yeah, Alan, that's a surprise. I agree that, more people should be trying to teach this. And I don't know of any architectural photography programs in Columbia doesn't have one, for instance.
There used to be. I got looking back at college catalogs and things like that. I just kind of went down a rabbit hole online, and in the 60s and 70s, there were a lot actually, and then they kind of all went away by the end of the 70s, and I'm not sure why that was, but there were even architect degrees where you can minor in architectural photography. So yeah, I don't know what happened.
Well, I know there is well, I think there's still a real interest in it. I know when I was in LA, Norman McGrath would come out and do an all-day workshop, and it would just fill up. I was so surprised. Or you do an evening show and then the all-day thing the next day, and it would just fill up. People were, regular, ordinary photographers, non-architectural photographers were also intensely interested in this, partly because they get asked occasionally to do architecture and they know they don't know how to do it.
And I kind of had the sense, at least it's, maybe my memory's not what it should be, but I have the sense that there was more of an interest in architectural photography when it was film based than there is now.
How many here are willing to have someone shadow you on the job? I think that's, if it can be arranged, I think that's a great way to help somebody out, because it's hands-on. They can actually see what you're doing. I think that's a great idea.
I had one set up yesterday that unfortunately the guy had to cancel because his regular day job required him, but he was going to become my second assistant. And it would have been a great opportunity for him, and we'll do it. One of the other jobs that I have, that's but it benefits me, because given that 90% of this work is moving furniture, having somebody else do that moving is a benefit. My back feels better at the end of the day if somebody 24 is doing that moving than me.
I think it's really a good idea. And if the person shadowing you is a photographer or is already in the field, they may only need to shadow you for one visit, maybe two, but to see what your workflow is like, to see how you do things. And I think probably all of us do things a little bit different anyway. So it's, if they look at your portfolio and they say, yeah, I want to shoot like that, they reach out to you. I think that's a great thing. And maybe Alan, you can add that onto the, your webs and onto the AIAP, those that are willing to,
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Yeah.
I have to say that I never assisted, and before I turned pro, which
Why
is
is that
not
hard to believe?
Action before talk. That's been the way I live my life. And but every single time that I have assisted another photographer, I learned something amazing. Yeah, so I think even for when you're established, there's just nothing better. Also, I had an assistant who really only worked with architectural photographers in LA, PJ McMullen, great assistant. Nobody had ever talked with him about business. And we had a big all-day job, and we had to take a break in the middle of the afternoon. So we went to my hotel room, and a job came in. And I said, do you want to hear how I handle this? And nobody had ever walked him through the process, even of how to bid or how to ask questions about what to bid on, all those kinds of things. So I think a lot of assistants are potentially a good source of mentees also, because a lot of people are doing it the old school way, which is to assist and then go out on their own.
The thing that if the person had showed up yesterday on the job that I shot, they would have seen how I handled the people. I mean, to Norman's point, that how much of this can just be about people skills and how you handle situations, and because stuff went wrong. There's always something that goes wrong, and how you schmooze it, and not only how do you solve the problem, but how do you make the client feel good about it? They would have picked up all of those nuances that you get whenever you watch somebody else do what they're doing.
Excellent points. Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's huge. Well, I hope we can kind of push this profession forward in a positive way as a result of all this. And I will implement all these things that we've talked about here fairly quickly on the website. And then when you log into your account on the Neon portal, then you'll be able to see this new page, and it will come up as the mentorship page. And I will probably ask for some information from everyone as to what they would be interested in showing on their profile there on that page, so we can go forward from there. Thanks to everyone. This has been a really useful conversation, and I think we're going to have some excellent results as a result of this, and I look forward to things moving forward. So I wish you all the best. I hope that this spring is excellent for everyone, and I hope that we all have good weather. I know this has been a little challenging so far this spring for everybody and in every region of the U.S. And hopefully we can get through the next couple of weeks and have things settle down. So everyone stay safe, and let's meet back here again next month.
This has been another episode of A Photographer's Life. If you've enjoyed this program, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. A Photographer's Life is brought to you by the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This episode is copyrighted and may not be used in full or in part without the written permission of the AIAP. Please join us again soon for another inside look at the world of professional architectural photography.